You'd think once the machines stopped, once the smoke cleared, once the furnaces went cold in 1971, the horror would have ended. But that's the thing about Sloss. The fire never really died. Even after the factory was abandoned, people reported hearing the same screams that echoed when the furnaces were alive. The footsteps, the shadows, the disembodied voices calling, "Help me, please." It was as if the building itself had absorbed every ounce of pain, every scream, every death, and refused to let it go. And soon, the workers who were long dead started making themselves known to the living. In the early 1970s, after the shutdown, security guards were hired to patrol the massive complex. Most of them thought it would be an easy job, an abandoned factory, just watch for vandals or trespassers. But almost immediately, guards began quitting. One guard reported hearing footsteps echoing across the catwalks above him, heavy boots striking the metal walkway. He thought another guard was on duty. He called out, "Who's up there?" No answer. The footsteps continued, pacing back and forth, as if someone was still working the night shift. When he climbed up to check, the platform was empty. Another guard swore he heard a man screaming for help near one of the furnace pits. He ran toward the sound, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. But when he got there, all he found was silence and the smell of burning flesh. Though the furnace hadn't burned in decades, the most infamous case happened in 1977. A night watchman named Samuel claimed he was shoved from behind by invisible hands while walking across a catwalk. He nearly fell 30 feet into a concrete pit. When he scrambled to his feet, he heard a voice hiss in his ear, "Get back to work." Samuel quit that same night and never returned. By the 1980s, Sloss had become a playground for urban explorers and thrill-seeking teenagers. The massive factory was crumbling, rusted, dangerous even without ghosts. But what they found there was something worse. Groups of teens reported hearing chains dragging across the floor, even when no one else was inside. Some claimed they saw glowing red eyes peering at them from the shadows of the furnace pits. One group of explorers told police they found a man inside, a worker, they thought, covered in soot, face blackened, shouting at them to leave now. They ran, terrified, but when authorities searched the building, no man was ever found. Perhaps the most disturbing story came from a young woman in the 1990s. She and her friends entered the factory late one night. They were laughing, daring each other to go deeper. But then she stopped cold. She felt a hand, ice cold and rough, wrap around her wrist. She screamed, yanking free, but when she looked down, there was a burn mark on her skin. To this day, she swears something tried to drag her back into the furnace. And here's where the story gets even darker. Because even after the factory closed, people still died inside Sloss. In 1984, a homeless man was found dead near one of the old blast furnaces. Cause of death? Officially, exposure. But police on the scene reported something strange. The body was covered in burns, as though he had fallen into fire. Yet no fires had burned there for 13 years. In 1993, a group of thrill-seekers entered Sloss at night. One man separated from the group. When they found him hours later, he was unconscious, his face blistered with second-degree burns. He survived, but when he woke up in the hospital, he whispered only 2 words before refusing to ever speak of it again. Slag, pushed. Even in death, The old foreman seemed to be running the furnaces. As the years went on, Sloss attracted not just teens and vandals, but paranormal investigators from all over the country. And what they recorded there is terrifying. Teams captured EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, of men screaming, groaning, and shouting commands. One chilling recording features a gravelly voice barking, "Get to work, move faster." Others caught whispers, "Help me, I can't breathe." Thermal cameras recorded heat signatures walking along catwalks, figures glowing red, even though the factory was ice cold at night. One investigator described the overwhelming sensation of being choked in the tunnels, as though invisible hands were crushing his throat. He barely escaped before collapsing outside. But the most disturbing thing? Every team, no matter who they were or when they came, reported the same figure. A shadowy man with glowing eyes watching from above. Slag. So by now, you're probably asking yourself, why do these spirits stay? What binds them to this place? Why do they keep screaming for help when no one's coming? In the next part, we'll uncover the theories behind the hauntings, from curses and sacrifices to the sheer trauma that soaked into the walls. And we'll hear eyewitness accounts so terrifying, even seasoned ghost hunters swore never to return. And if you thought what you've heard so far was horrifying, you haven't heard the worst of it. Here's the question that chills me the most. Why haven't the dead left Sloss Furnaces? When a building closes, when the machines go silent, the workers usually move on. But here, the souls never left. The question is, why? Some believe it's because of the sheer trauma burned into the walls. Some think the furnaces themselves act like a trap, a portal, pulling spirits down into the belly of the factory. Others say it's something darker, that Slag Wormwood isn't just a ghost. He's a demon, feeding off fear, commanding the souls of the men he killed. And when you hear the eyewitness stories, you'll understand why so many believe Sloss is cursed. The most common theory is what paranormal investigators call residual energy. Think of it like this. When something horrific happens, the emotional energy doesn't just vanish. It imprints itself into the environment. And Sloss saw more suffering, more terror, more death than almost any other industrial site in America. So the screams, the footsteps, the clanging of tools, they might not be intelligent spirits at all. They might just be echoes, playing on a loop, forever repeating the agony of the past. That's why so many visitors hear men shouting, "Get back to work," or "Help me," because that's what they were screaming a century ago. But then, there are the stories that go beyond residual. Here's where it gets darker. Many investigators believe Sloss isn't just replaying history. It's alive. It responds. It attacks. Too many people have been shoved, scratched, choked, or burned inside the factory to dismiss it as coincidence. And nearly all of them describe the same thing: the sense of being watched by something malevolent. That's why so many believe Slag Wormwood still rules the furnaces. That his death in 1906 didn't free his soul, but chained it to the fire forever. And if Slag is still there, that means he isn't just haunting. One of the most terrifying modern accounts comes from a professional ghost hunter in 2005. He was deep in one of the furnace tunnels with a small team. The air was thick, heavy, hard to breathe. He lifted his recorder and asked, "Is anyone here with us?" At first, silence. Then, A growl. Low, guttural, inhuman. Moments later, his teammate screamed. A red mark had appeared across her back. 3 deep scratches, as if clawed by something invisible. They fled the tunnel. When they reviewed the audio later, their blood ran cold. Because right before the growl, a voice whispered, "Slag." In the late 2000s, Sloss was used as a venue for concerts and festivals. Thousands of people gathered where workers once toiled and died. During one show, a staff member went into one of the side buildings to check on power cables. Minutes later, he stumbled out, pale, shaking, terrified. He claimed he saw a man inside, charred skin, glowing red eyes, standing just inches from him. The man didn't speak. He just stared. The staffer quit that night. And other workers admitted they heard strange noises during festivals. Screams that didn't belong to the crowd, chains dragging across the ground, and shadows moving against the light. Even when the place was filled with music and laughter, the darkness of Sloss demanded attention. Now here's the most chilling theory of all. Some believe Sloss isn't just haunted. It's a gateway, a portal. Think about it. A factory where fire never stopped burning, where men died in agony, where a sadistic foreman ruled with cruelty. That kind of suffering doesn't just fade, it festers. Paranormal experts argue that the furnaces might have opened something darker, something demonic. That would explain why so many spirits here aren't peaceful. They don't just appear, they attack. They scratch, shove, burn. They whisper threats. And if Slag himself was truly consumed by that darkness, maybe he isn't a ghost at all. Maybe he's something far worse. In 2013, a volunteer tour guide was locking up after hours. He was alone, walking through one of the main buildings. Suddenly, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned. No one there. He kept walking. Then the footsteps grew louder, faster. He broke into a run. The footsteps chased him, pounding on the metal walkway. When he finally made it outside, heart racing, he swore he heard a voice, deep, commanding, shout after him. "Where do you think you're going?" He never volunteered again. And then there's the story from a local journalist who spent the night at Sloss for a Halloween feature. He and his cameraman set up near one of the old furnace pits. Hours passed with nothing. Then, at around 3 a.m., the temperature dropped. Their equipment flickered. The cameraman screamed. When the journalist turned, he saw it too. A black figure, tall, broad, standing against the glow of the furnace room. Its eyes burned red. The journalist raised his flashlight. The figure didn't vanish. It moved closer. They ran, leaving their gear behind. When they retrieved it the next day, their video showed something chilling. For just a few seconds, the camera caught the figure. A man. Face half burned, skin melted, eyes glowing. And as the screen flickered, a voice whispered into the microphone, "Slag." So here we are. A factory that should have died in 1971, but didn't. A place where men were worked to death, where screams became part of the architecture, where a foreman so cruel that his ghost might still command the dead. But the story doesn't end there, because in our final part, we'll face the climax. Why people still risk entering Sloss today. What investigators discovered in their most terrifying encounters. And how you, watching this right now, might already feel the pull of the furnaces. And trust me, you'll want to hear the ending. By now, you've heard about the accidents, the deaths, and the hauntings. You've felt the weight of Sloss Furnaces' dark history pressing down. But the worst stories? The ones that make people quit jobs, leave tours, and swear never to return? Those come from the night visitors, those who dared to stay after dark. Because that's when Sloss comes alive again. The shadows stretch longer. The temperature rises even when the night air is cold. And somewhere in the darkness, a figure watches. Not just any figure. Slag Wormwood, or at least what's left of him. One of the most chilling modern accounts comes from a team of paranormal investigators who spent the night in the furnace room. Around midnight, their cameras caught a red glow moving across the catwalk. Their thermometers spiked to over 100 degrees Fahrenheit in a space that should have been freezing. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the building. Metal clanged like someone had slammed a hammer on the floors above. Then came the screams, hundreds of voices, layered together, echoing as if trapped in the walls. Some were begging, some were cursing, some were laughing. The investigators tried to leave. The doors they'd entered through slammed shut, trapping them inside. Panic set in. One whispered into a recorder, "Slag is here." By dawn, they were found outside, cameras on the ground, trembling. And on the footage? A figure with glowing red eyes staring at them from the top of the furnace, before vanishing into smoke. So why is Sloss so terrifying, even today? Because it's not just haunted. It's a living monument to suffering. Every man who died here left something behind. Every scream, every death, every act of cruelty has become part of the building itself. And some believe the factory never forgave the living. Security guards, urban explorers, paranormal investigators, they all report the same phenomenon. No matter how careful you are, Sloss doesn't let you leave unscathed. You hear footsteps behind you. You feel hands grab your shoulders. You see shadows with glowing eyes in the corners of your vision. You feel the heat of a furnace, long dead. It's as if Sloss is still working. And we are the fuel. So here's the warning. If you ever find yourself inside Sloss Furnaces at night, don't wander alone. Don't dare touch anything. And for the love of God, don't stay too long. Because Slag doesn't just watch. He hunts. And the men who died here, they may take notice of you too. Some say that once the building claims you, your scream is added to the chorus. Your shadow is burned into the brick. And then, you become part of Sloss, forever. If you're fascinated by stories like this, there's so much more waiting for you. From haunted factories to cursed woods, I dive deep into the most terrifying places in America. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that might keep you up at night. And after this video, check out my other feature, People Who Vanished After Calling for Help. Stories so chilling, you'll question whether anyone is ever truly safe. And here's the final thought I want you to ponder. If a single building can feed on fear for over a century, then what happens if you enter it tonight? Would you dare step inside, knowing that the fires may still be waiting for you? The furnace never forgets.